All right, so let's go ahead and go with the big reveal, all right? I'm going to go ahead and point out the places that are still operating that ultimately, right now, are actually being investigated, all right? Redemption Hill Church. You know exactly what the fuck you're being investigated. You know, money laundering. Now, another place. It's been a long while since they've been mentioned, all right? Cynthia over at the community center slash church. Yeah, religious discrimination. Yeah, we already know all your bullshit. All right? And the funny thing is, the reason that that investigation has to happen is because ultimately, once the whole jury nullification, jury tampering thing ended up happening, and the funny thing is that spiteful shit of attempting to have me put on the federal watch list, not knowing the factor that I was already considered a federal asset because of, going ahead and helping the feds be able to prove a multi-state fraud investigation. So yeah, if it wasn't for the factor that I was already on that watch list and the cops ended up going ahead and attempting to help sabotage me, ultimately, I might have actually had something to worry about. With the amount of people that were going and trying to come at me. All right. So Cynthia, you did your big one, but now you got to worry about your fucking indictments. All right. Make sure you protect your ass in prison. All right, especially because of that whole, you know, going ahead and weaponize welfare checks. Yeah, I've seen too many of them throughout my life. Control freaks, quite literally spinning the fuck out, literally just willing to destroy it all because of the factor that they couldn't just micromanage the fuck out of everything to get everything to go the way that they wanted it to, in every which way. I quite literally was birthed by one. And the cops now have to investigate because, number one, when you have somebody attempting to contaminate a jury pool, with there being substantiated evidence to go ahead and prove an insider at the courts, going and attempting, witness tampering, yeah, that ain't gonna go good. All right. Not to mention that, but ultimately, in order to stay open, don't y'all rely on federal grants, that require you to, not engage in hate crimes like oppression of civil liberties, because that might be very fundamental to not losing, your foundation. So just figured I'd go ahead and let you know. You tried it. You tried it, but you massively fucked up. But afterwards, the evidence of, me being a little bit different, it's out there now. All right. So ultimately, you can't try to leverage secrets on somebody who they literally have exposed every fucking secret about themselves. Kind of hard to extort such individuals. But you're learning that the hard way. You and Mitchell. Because Daymark's part in it. Because, attempting to paint it as a mental health crisis while simultaneously already knowing about the factor with me being in that coma in the past, and having evidence of that, despite the medical malpractice and the tampering with my medical records, that, you know, ultimately by trying to go ahead and have psychiatric medication forced down my throat, despite the factor of me being a coma survivor, that actually could cause neurological damage in a post-coma delirium, that ultimately, with that situation, if there were any crimes committed in an attempt to defend myself, would actually grant a temporary insanity plea because, quite literally the reason for attempting to, wrongfully imprison me, with the involuntary hospitalization, claiming that I needed psychiatric medication despite the factor that, it was proven the factor of those diagnoses being fraudulent. I mean, literally, it was the attempt of people that were exploiting children in an attempt to, not end up losing their federal funding. So you literally took the worst narrative you could have fucking took and ran with that shit like it was a golden strategy. So you fucked up. Now, all right, the reason that the cops are actually, going and complying with that full on audit is because of the factor that I've already gotten not one, but two different judges taken off the bench simultaneously, got the persons in need of supervision, juvenile, cadet program, just taken away. Absolutely dismantled up in New York by going ahead and, going improving the long-term damage as well as the constitutional breaches that had occurred in order to be able to utilize juvenile delinquents for slave labor in an attempt for financial profit of the local county. So, yeah, that you might want to make sure that when you attempt to do reconnaissance, that you legitimately do reconnaissance, and stop accusing people of not being exactly what they say they are. Because quite literally, you've got people arguing, oh, we're going to lose your freedom with classified, because of, improper procedure. Da, da, da. There's such a thing called top secret. And understand, when it comes down to that top secret categorization, it's because of the factor that top branch, that executive branch, ultimately ends up having to be the mediator whenever there's a conflict between different government branches. Okay? So, that being said, the cops don't want to end up getting fired and publicly shamed, with their families disgraced because they bought your bullshit and didn't want to do their due diligence because, don't want to have to answer on the stand, how quite literally doing elementary school level math could have prevented me from ending up in a coma and would have told the cops everything that they needed to know. Well, simultaneously, the accusations that were levied against me, how ultimately there was due process done, while simultaneously, before I got racially profiled, that paper trail was there, yet still has not been remedied and rectified. So over a damage of over a decade of inaction, while simultaneously living off the taxpayer dollar, but don't want to have to submit to a forensic audit through the IRS. I'm just saying, whatever the fuck your ace in the hole strategy you think you got, you don't have shit. But by this point, y'all already know the jig is up. You were just waiting for me to call out in public so that way you could be like, oh, I'm gonna sue you. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation. Alright, so good luck with that. But there absolutely will be a countersuit for oppression of civil liberties, obstruction of justice, tortious interference, intentional infliction of emotional distress, discriminatory hiring practices. Are you catching my fucking point? You file that as soon as you want. I've already got mine cooking in the fucking court that has been waiting. Because at this point, the court's even kind of amused, wanting to see what the fuck y'all are going to be able to do, or going to try to do. And the funniest part, the cops, they've already had that paper trail, that paper fucking evidence. They know they've had it in their possession for a long while. But as far as the paper copies, well, everyone is sitting back with their thumb up their ass, just watching of like, who's going to be passed off to? Because y'all want to be nosy, gossipy little fucks. Y'all haven't even realized that the actual illusion was the fact that that paper trail, that paper evidence, was already handed over to the cops since September 2023, when y'all claimed that I have a coke issue, a coke problem, to get to find out that, yes, I actually can sue you for defamation for claiming that I'm a drug addict in an attempt to try to micromanage and control my career trajectory and, financial opportunities. So, you literally blew yourself the fuck up. And I've been sitting back, as well as the few cops that have been, in the loop on how y'all gonna play it out. Because you were stupid enough to think that nobody knew what the fuck you were up to. Well, you literally did not realize the factor that I was not kidding when I said how much I internalized the fucking rule book. Alright? Like, Old Vineyard got to learn to pull himself out of that shit when after the accident, I got sent there and they literally saw me with no cell phone and a fucking crayon with a white piece of paper going ahead and mapping out a complete and total roadmap to avoid adverse possession. Like, that was the point that Old Vineyard realized, oh shit, we fucked up. We better try to do what we can to try to mitigate as much of the damage as possible, or else we're shut down. Especially because we were the location where the cops attempted to coerce a confession. So tell me, how the fuck do you plan to get yourself out of this? Because you're highly mistaken. I'm not the one in danger here. Not to mention that, but by trying to prevent my forward trajectory, by going ahead and breaching the 1996 Identity Theft and Assumption Deference Act, by going ahead and stealing my documentation, my driver's license, so that way if I go ahead and utilize a vehicle, the vehicle that you went to go move out of my reach, that I would end up getting hit with a DWI, which does not stand for driving while intoxicated. It stands for driving without identification, you dumb fucks. So, what you were thinking of is DUI, driving under the influence. But what the fuck do I know, apparently? Y'all said I was fucking retarded. But please, continue on. You genius fucking individuals that don't even realize that by being positioned in the position of being here against my will, because you want to be petty and try to waste as much of my time as possible, that by going ahead and keeping me here against my will, that legally I am allowed to do what I need to do in order to be able to get my forward momentum back. Alright, including the use of lethal force, because ultimately you got upset that I was not going to succumb to Stockholm Syndrome because people orchestrated to fucking kidnap me and say you're not going anywhere until you submit to the fucking belief system that I want to try to force on you. Which no fucking court in the fucking United States of America will ever fucking agree with you on. Not even the Supreme Court. So that being said, what do you have to say for yourself, you shameful pieces of shit?